Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Ottercar AI Racing Series. Today, here at the Langley Speedway for Round 9 of the championship, here for the NASA for the benefit of OT 115 here at Langley Speedway. And apparently, all of the info we have about the track here has decided it does not want to be here, which is unfortunate. So you're just going to have to take my word here for all of the info that I tell you about this lovely, wonderful little speedway. Opened back up in 1950. Second time the Ottercar has been here to Langley. First time the race was won by Octave back in the 200 modified, who led all but 4 laps of that event. A very dominant performance by that driver. He didn't end up taking home the championship, but he did get a race win to his name. Of course, that was getting dangerously close to 2 years ago since that happened. Also, Langley has been around since the 1950s, but it existed prior to that, all the way back into the early 1940s, as a dirt horse racing shack known as the Dude Ranch, which sounds shockingly not 40s to me, but evidently back in the 40s, people were calling things Dude. Along with that, of course, the name of the title for this race, NASA for the benefit of OT. We are across the street from a NASA research center, and I'll tell you what, it's kind of a genius place to put something there. A lot of these drivers know a thing or two about sending large, heavy metal objects into orbit, and I would not be surprised if the Ottercar drivers manage to make that stand true as well. Along with that, this track is a part of the very prestigious Virginia Triple Crown, along with the South Boston Speedway and Martinsville Speedway, one of which hosts NASCAR Cup Series racing, and actually just had NASCAR Cup Series racing this weekend with Hendrick Motorsports sweeping the day with Byron Larson and Elliott, your top 3 at that event, and that was actually just yesterday. So kind of a small world out here in Ottercar, but it's going to be 115 laps here today at Langley for the first round, or the first event, excuse me, of the round of 8 here. Last week at VIR, we had 4 drivers eliminated. That was Ashley, Zoe, August, and limited time that were eliminated from the playoffs. So that's going to be leaving us with thirds, Ash with an E, Ame Sakuramori, Madcap, Rally, Dwayne Day, and Chris Cox as your remaining 8 drivers in the playoffs. And who knows? Anything could happen here today. This is the second of 2 tracks that this car is actually meant to be racing on. The first one, of course, being back at the Oxford Plains Speedway for the Blue Shell 110 back in the early goings of this season, back before we had the new CPU that allowed the streams to be a little bit more watchable. And that race had about about 10 or so cautions in that 110 lap period. So who knows what's going to happen here. It could be drama, it could be chaos, or maybe these drivers will actually clean up their act a little bit, considering this is a track that they are meant to be competing on. So who knows, we'll just have to take a look down here and see. And that said, drivers making their way down to the starting lineup, so how about we see how things will be shaking off here today. Starting out on the pole in that number 3 machine with a 14.773 to her name. That's going to be one of the Shelter for Strays drivers, and so far the driver at the top of the regular season point standings and the driver at the top of the playoff standings right now. That's going to be none other than thirds. Starting her outside in the 420 in the Pop-Tart Wild Berry entry, that's going to be the 420 of Oh You Know, followed by the 330 of Lake for Team Killed the President. Starting her outside is actually going to be another driver for Team Killed the President. That's going to be the 369 of Drop Table Roster, starting back in position number 4. Fifth place going to go back to the 93 of Bloody Wolf, followed by the third and final member of the Kill the President racing team. That's going to be the 44 limited time entry. The one driver of that team that managed to make it into the playoffs, unfortunately eliminated with last week's race back at VIR. Then back in 7th is going to be the 11th of Ash. That's going to be one of our playoff drivers. Followed by another driver that made it into the playoffs but was unfortunately eliminated last week at VIR. That's going to be the 21 of August. Back in 9th, an unlikely driver to make it into the playoffs. That's the 69 of Chris Cox, still kicking strong here in position number 9. Round out the top 10 here, that's going to be the 1 machine of Med, followed by one of the Blazing Drunk drivers. That's going to be the 38 of Madcap back in 11th, followed by the 88 of Ashley back in 12th. 13th going to go back to the 777 entry. That's going to be Sarah Something, followed by Queen Amatrine in the 37 for the Blazing Drunk drivers racing team back in 14th. 15th going to go back to one of the Hybrid Development Team drivers. That's going to be the number 2 of Ame Sakaramori, followed by the 818 of MF Beatus back in 16th. 17th going to be going to the 985 of Jeremy Albertson, followed by the 030 of Ash. That's another one of our playoff drivers starting all the way back there in 18th. Followed by the 800 of Deeg back in 19th, with the 666 entry of Zoe back in 20th. 21st going to go to the 12 machine of Pav. Excuse me, I don't know why we're going with Pive today, but that works. Followed by the 26 of Rally, one of the other Hybrid Development Team drivers, starting back in position number 2. Hybrid Development Team not having the qualifying they were looking for here, considering they are both still in the playoffs here. The only team to have all of its members currently in the playoffs. Back in 23rd, that's going to be the Blazed and Drunk driver, number 776 of Valnar, followed by the 901 of Sarkin back in 24th. 25th. Apparently going back to me because we had 2 drivers fail to set a qualifying time. That is actually going to be Dwayne Day and Kevin 11 rounding out the tail end of the field as drivers who apparently failed to post a valid qualifying time. They somehow had incidents in both attempts, which is a little scary for the outlook of how today's race is going to go. That said, lights are out on the iRacing.com pace car. We will be going green flag racing for the first time here at Langley next time around. Thirds and OU No going to be your front running row with lake and drop table roster just behind. 115 laps is the distance here for round number 9. And as the iRacing pace car makes the jump down to the safety of pit lane, the green flag up in the air for the first time here at Langley for the NASA 115. And the outside line having a little bit of trouble out there, and a bit of a checkup from OU No. Lake in the 330 getting into the outside of him just a little bit there. As we see everyone in the inside line kind of struggling here a little bit. They're all just kind of piling it in there. But so far so good. Everyone seems to be generally behaving themselves around the speedway. Of course, up on your timing and scoring board right now, the driver's still in the playoffs, highlighted in purple right there, as Pav decides to take it 3 wide there here in that 12 machine. So far so good around the Langley Speedway, though. We've gotten 3 laps in the books. That is better than we have been able to say back at Oxford when everything kind of just fell apart right at the beginning. But there's, again, a big checkup coming down through turns 3 and 4. And it's all through these drivers at the tail end of the field. Pav back in 15th leading this group. Med having trouble up on the high line, having to get hard on the brakes there. Really, it just seems that the outside line's on a little bit of a struggle bus here today as we're 3 wide again back at the very tail end of the field. And oh, there's trouble. Caution flags out. We have a driver that has escaped the speedway. Rally has escaped the bounds of Langley Speedway. I'll tell you what, race fans, when I said there was a reason they built a NASA research facility outside of this track, I meant it. And it looks like, as we take a look back here at the incident, it started with the 26 of Rally, 3 wide with Queen Amatrine, sponsored by Riot Games, and the 88 of Ashley. And sure enough, that catch fence did nothing to stop that car, and it got sent straight into the crowd. Fortunately, I do believe that all of these drivers have signed waivers here. Will the cameraman get taken out? Yes, they will. The cameraman KO'd by Rally for the first caution of the evening. Let's take one last look at that. Let's try and break out the slow motion camera. Maybe get out the blimp. courtesy of Dirt for bringing us that one. So let's break out the slow-mo camera here. Starts with Queen Ametrine, sponsored by Riot Games, getting into the 88 of Ashley. That drifts her up and right rears the 26 of Rally, who gets launched up into the air off of Ashley. And then conveniently sent into the single spot where there's not really a catch fence, but then the catch fence doesn't do anything anyways, so really no big deal there for that 26 of Rally. But unfortunately, Rally is one of those playoff drivers, so being sent into the Shadow Realm, into orbit, in the first 8 laps of the round of 8, not the way you want your playoff run to go. You're at the point right now where these playoff drivers cannot afford to make mistakes anymore. Of course, that 88 of Ashley, and I was also involved in that incident, she was eliminated from the playoffs last round, so Ashley doesn't really have anything to lose anymore. Of course, there is always the regular points championship, but Ashley is no longer eligible to be in the playoffs, so no big deal for that 88, but for Rally, that is a bit of a disastrous incident. We do see Queen Ametrine getting back on the speedway, though. That engine doesn't quite sound right for the 37 machine, but Queen Ametrine, sponsored by Riot Games, is back on the speedway, though it does look like she's being scored 3 laps down from that incident. Lights are out on the pace car, though. We're going to be going green flag racing once again. Your front row now going to be Thirds and Lake, followed by Bloody Wolf and Ash with an E. So 2 playoff drivers inside the top 5 as we come to our first restart of the day. Pace car's off. Let's try this thing again. Green flag up in the air here at Langley. Once again, we see the outside line kind of struggle on the start. Lake immediately falling back to 3rd as Bloody Wolf makes the move down to the bottom. Drop table roster wasting no time in that 369 to shove Ash up to the high line, and it looks like we may have an incident. One of the blocker cars is spun around. That will be a caution, because of course here on the ovals we are using iRacing's automated cautions rather than throwing them ourselves. So the blocker cars do have a small amount of rights here today compared to the road courses. And of course, I mean, it's a small favor to pay to them, since the blocker cars actually have a very substantial impact on the race at these short ovals compared to the 3+ mile long road courses. Speaking of track length, though, this track 0.39 miles or 0.65 kilometers in length, only a few feet or a few meters, depending on your preferences, bigger than the Oxford Plains Speedway. We're looking down at one of the blocker cars, and it's a self-spin. They didn't even get any help. They just spun by themselves. Monumental skill issue. I changed my mind. The blocker cars don't deserve rights anymore. What is this? This is the slowest car on the iRacing.com platform, and it manages to self-spin. Absolutely stupendous work. I'm well and truly impressed with what these blocker cars are capable of. So that's going to bring out caution flag number 2 here at Langley. Still got a long way left to go here in today's event. Due to how quick the pace laps here at Langley are, and the fact that we have 115 laps to play with, we will not be shortening the cautions until we get into the closing chapters of the race, because of course we always want to try and have the race end under green. And it looks like Queen Ametrine is going to be given the lucky dog, so Queen Ametrine looks like she might actually be getting put back on the lead lap here in that 37 machine. Not quite. Still 1 lap down for Queen Ametrine. So if another caution flag flies, provided Queen Ametrine is not in the incident, Queen Ametrine will be put back on the lead lap and potentially be vying for the win of this race. Of course, Queen Ametrine not in the playoffs, but a race win is still worth bragging rights, and there is always the team championship to think about, and right now it is looking like the Blazing Drunk drivers are leading the team championship 137.3 points to Shelter for Strays having 133.3. Hybrid Development Team a 133 flat, and then the team Kill the President is all the way down at 116. So it's really a three-way battle between Blazing Drunk Drivers, Shelter for Strays, and Hybrid Development Team, but right now, Kill the President not looking very good unless they get a decently substantial race here in the final couple of events. Green flag back up in the air though. Thirds still holds the lead. An amazing jump off the restart again. It's just a kind of a struggle for the outside line to get any sort of momentum going on here, and I think really on the outside line here, you just have to take it easy, hope you can find a gap down to the inside so that should a caution flag fly again, you can maybe start on the inside for another restart. Because as long as you're on the inside on the restarts, it seems like you're good to go. As Woody Wolf has fallen all the way back from 2nd to 7th here over the course of just a few laps. Now falling all the way back to 9th with Ame Sakuramori making the dive down the inside as well. And just like that, Woody Wolf 2nd to 10th on that restart. Just behind Valnar in that 776, looking to try and make a move on the 93 machine as well, and it looks like he will be successful. There's just no grip to play with up on the high line here. Valnar having a heck of a run here. Looks like the most improved driver right now. Sure enough, most improved driver on the speedway right now. Valnar up plus 13 from where he qualified, now running inside of the top 10. Question is, how well will that be able to last here in the chaos of this short track event? Just behind Valnar, it looks like going to be the one of Med in now on the outside line, having to battle it out with Woody Wolf, and it looks like Blue actually managed to get down to the bottom of the racetrack and is going to be able to make up a little bit of ground again. Med has a little bit of a checkup there coming out of turn number 2. Not quite sure what all that was about, but caution flag is out on the speedway, and it looks like one of the blocker cars is around again. If this is another self-spin, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed here. Let's take a look back here, see what the cause of this caution was. I'm hoping it's not a self-spin. We do have actual Ottercar drivers interacting with these blocker cars here. Are we going to see Chris Cox? Nope, not Chris Cox causing it. Nope, it's just another self-spin. Never mind. Nothing exciting there, courtesy of the blocker cars. I'll tell you what though, race fans, with the amount of incidents that the blocker cars are having, it's starting to seem like the blocker car should be the car the Ottercar drivers are actually driving next season. We've seen, dare I say, more incidents from the blocker cars just either self-spinning or doing things to each other than we have seen the Ottercar drivers having incidents. Absolutely stellar moves out of these blocker car drivers. And it looks like that blocker car got caught behind the pace car, which is going to make this a very awkward restart here. Unless the blocker car gets given the wave around, which hopefully they will. Otherwise, we might see the outside line actually be able to have an advantage here, because the inside line will be held up by the blocker car. We will just have to see what the word is from race control once the lights on the pace car go out and make some decisions from there, see what all goes down. But right now, if I was thirds in that 3 machine, I would be a little bit nervous that I'd be having to start behind that blocker car. Should be getting the one to go this time by, I believe. We shall see. Yes, we are one to go, and the blocker car is being waved around the pace car, so the front of the Ottercar field will not be impeded this time around. Front row still going to be thirds and Lake, followed by August and Drop Table Roster. This could be Chris Cox and Ash for row 3, Madcap, Ame Sakuramori row 4, Sarah Something, and Valnar rounding out your top 10 on this restart. We're going to try this again. Attempt number 3 here at Langley. Green flag up in the air. And thirds leads the field down into turn number 1. Immediately getting a decent gap going. Everyone else, though, all completely clustered together. They've got some work to do if they want to get this thing sorted out. August is in the clear as well. He's got a little bit of breathing room to play with here. Blake still up inside the top 5 in that 330 machine despite the trouble on some of these restarts she's been having. And Woody Wolf, despite going from 2nd to 11th on that restart, managed to at least get down on the inside line. He's now back up inside the top 10 on the outside, looking in at a potential top 5 here in that number 93 machine. Just has to try and keep it down on the bottom. Don't make any sorts of mistakes and go up to the high line as Ame Sakuramori gets sent hard into the outside wall. It looks like that 2 machine has lost its steering ability. At least not correctly, and sure enough, caution flag flies as Ame Sakuramori unable to bring that car down to pit lane. An attempt was made, and it only made things worse. Let's take a look back here. Got to go a little bit further back in time to see what the deal is for Ame there. A little bit scary to see because, again, Ame is one of these playoff drivers here in Ottercar. So this is a big deal for that number 2 machine, but we've rewinded it potentially a little bit too much, but keep your eye down there on that Hybrid Development Team number 2, battling it out with the 818 of MF Beatus, and MF Beatus is going to drift up into it and cause that damage. I don't want to make any comments here, but I would imagine that 2 of Ame is very upset, because not only are the only 2 Ottercar drivers that have actually wrecked out of this event been Hybrid Development Team drivers, and not only that, but Hybrid Development Team drivers that are in the playoffs, battling for the championship, being taken out by the 818 of MF Beatus, who is currently last place in the point standings. Last place. And they end up taking out one of the playoff drivers. So that might be Hybrid Development Team's playoff runs and team championship efforts going up in flames here. Thirds continues to lead the field here up at the front just because we've had so many cautions and she's been doing so good at the initial jump to the flag that nobody's really been able to contest the lead from that 3 machine. So far led every lap of this event. August and Chris Cox both up +6 behind her respectively. Sarah Something up +8. Sarkin up +18 right now, up in the 6th position. So far nobody has come down pit lane except for Queen Amatrine, who came down to have some damage repaired. Raleigh and Ashley are both back out on the speedway, but they are both 10 and 20 laps down respectively. Ame Sakuramori down on pit lane getting that damage repaired. I would imagine we're going to see Ame come out 10 to 20 laps down as well. But of course, they're down, but they're not out. There is one more chance to make something happen next week at the Charlotte Roval for the Kills You Corner 75 presented by Speedway Motorsports. And then we head to Sebring. But for now, green flag up in the air. We're going to keep this thing going here at Langley. Thirds, unsurprisingly, again, a really solid start going down into turn number 1. Just behind, though, it is all calamity and chaos as we potentially have trouble. Never mind, looks like just an issue with the timing and scoring just a little bit. We are still A-OK. Nope, caution flag is out on the speedway. Not entirely sure what caused the issue there. but it's sounding like maybe something happened with the blocker cars. So let's look back here, try and see what all went down. Looking down and, oh, self-spin for one of the blocker cars, and the other blocker cars all come piling in. So an immediate incident right off the bat here to put us back under caution for another time. It's looking like the timing and scoring is having a little bit of trouble here, getting caught up to everything. So I'll give it just a second to get everything sorted out, but it's looking like it's going to be Thirds and Chris Cox as your front-running row when we go green flag racing again. It does look like we've also had a lot of takers down pit lane. Sarah, something has come down. Madcap has come down. Sarkin, Kevin 11, Zoe, Bloody Wolf, Pav, Ash, Dwayne Day, Jeremy Albertson, Med, and Queen Amatrine have all come down for their stops. That leaves Limited Time, Oh You Know, Deeg, Valnar, MF Beatus, Drop Table Roster, Ash, Lake August, Chris Cox, and Thirds, all electing to stay out on the speedway. Will we see any of these drivers change their mind on their pit strategies? It's looking like no, they will not. Lights still on the pace car though. Still got to give it another lap or two to get everyone put in their correct positions before we're able to go green flag racing again. So far, 44 laps in the books, not even halfway through this event, and we've had 5 caution flags fly. I'll tell you what, the one driver who probably is really happy to see all these yellows was Thirds. She's got these restarts down, and provided that the caution flags keep flying, I don't think anyone's going to have the opportunity to get around her. Lights are out on the pace car though. We're going to be going green flag racing once again, this time by going to be 46 laps complete at the green. Thirds, Chris Cox, your front row. August and Lake, row number 2. Ash up inside the top 5, so there are now 3 playoff drivers inside your top 5 as we come to this green flag. Green flag up in the air here at Langley. So far so good. Down into turn number 1. Nothing too catastrophic quite yet here. Maybe slightly more decent behavior going on around the field, but again, it's a complete cluster down at the tail end of the field. It looks like Sarah something has elected to come down onto pit lane here. This is her second stop. Not quite sure what is going on for the driver of the 777 machine, but that is definitely going to be hurting her chances to win this event. Currently looking down at Valnar back in position number 13, battling it out with Bloody Wolf and Kevin 11 as potentially another incident. Maybe not. We're keeping it green, so whatever happened, it looks like it wasn't anything too important. If it was, whatever happened, it was for a blocker car anyway, so we're keeping it green here. Currently looking at the battle here in the middle of the pack. Lake, Valnar, Bloody Wolf all duking it out. Up in front of them, Sark and Kevin 11 battling it out as well. Now that we're closing in on the halfway point of this race, drivers are starting to get a little bit more feisty with each other. Going to be 53, no, 52 in the books this time around. Jeremy Albertson making some moves down there, also up plus 10 right now. Kevin 11 up plus 17. We have seen drivers come from the back to the front and go all the way back to the back again. Everyone has just been all over the place here. Really, the only consistent driver right now has been that 3 of Thirds, and that's just because these drivers seem to get such good starts and restarts from the inside line. It's just really hard to make any sort of moves here. A little bit further up the field, Jeremy Albertson making moves on the 93 of Bloody Wolf. Queen Amatrine down there as well. Amatrine, of course, not on the lead lap right now, so She's just kind of hanging out on the speedway doing her own thing. Ametrine currently being scored only 1 lap down, 2 laps down, excuse me. So if Ametrine perseveres long enough and enough drivers wreck out and we have enough yellows, Ametrine could make it back up on the lead lap. See drivers here starting to have a little bit of difficulty as they try to figure out their way around these blocker cars, having a much bigger influence on today's event than they have at any of these road courses. Of course, the road courses was basically a last-minute change for the Ottercar AI Racing Series right before the league started. The original idea was to be all short tracks like this where these blocker cars would have a monumental effect, but then the AI got some updates that were kind of messy and made the short track racing not all that great, but some of these tracks still managed to slip through the cracks and still put on a solid show. And of course, why not have the track with the NASA Research Center right outside to put on a heck of a show of what this series could have originally been in its initial intention. Of course, only 2 races left after this one before we crown a champion for Ottercar season number 2, as we might have trouble up here. Thirds coming up on these blocker cars, Ash and August just behind. We almost saw a pass for the lead right there, but August got blocked by one of the blocker cars doing their namesake. And now the gap's pulled back out to about half a second between Thirds and Ash. 2 playoff drivers duking it out for the race lead. Madcap and Chris Cox, also 2 playoff drivers inside the top 10, duking it out with each other. Big thing to consider here, of course, winning here, both at this track or next week at the Charlotte Roval, will lock one of these drivers into championship contention. So more so really than anyone else in the field, these playoff drivers have to win this race if they want that safety bubble to be working with. A little bit further behind, the Drocker cars are having a little bit too much fun up there. Kevin 11 getting sent up into the outside wall. Does not look like he got any damage from it though. They're also pushing down on the 818 of MF Vitas pretty hard there, having to make him take a very uncomfortable line down below the apron, but he managed to keep it pointed right in the right direction. August having some trouble there up in the high line though. The entire inside line all just freight training around him all the way back to 14th now. August was running up in the 2nd position only just a couple of laps ago. As we take it 3 wide with a lapped car, that is Queen Ametrine in that 37, deciding to take it 3 wide with August. Looks like everyone managing to navigate their way through the drama with these blocker cars pretty easily. Oh, you know, and Lake making a move on August now as August falls back to the 18th position. And once again gets blocked by the blocker cars. There comes Bluty Wolf, there comes Jeremy Albertson. August is very quickly being filtered down to being the last car on the lead lap. And there's our race leader of Thirds coming into a ton of lap traffic here. Now more than ever, we may see Ash have an opportunity to take the race lead away from her. It's all going to come down to who can navigate these lapped cars better. As Thirds being pushed down below the apron by the blocker cars, so is Ash. Both of them managed to navigate around. We do have a couple cars being put a lap down by that. As Ash takes a dive down to the low line, not quite able to make it stick, but we have August, Queen, Ametrine, Sarah Something, all now being knocked laps down by Thirds. So far in the longest green flag run we have had so far here this evening in the battle for the lead, all within about a car length of each other. Thirds and Ash, just behind that 88 of Ashley, is not a part of this battle. She is not on the lead lap, neither is August. They are both cars being scored a lap down. As caution flag flies once again, and it looks like once again the drama is for one of the blocker cars. So Ash, try as he might, not quite able to snag the lead from Thirds. And will it be another self-spin? Sources are saying yes. I'll take another look down here, see what the deal is. And sure enough, oh, well, a little bit of damage to the side of Kevin 11 as well for good measure. At least there was any sort of interaction there with the Ottercar drivers. Taking a look back down at that, well, right on board with Kevin 11, who got a tiny little bit of damage from that incident. Not really anything notable, but he was involved, so we might as well ride on board, get his view of the stupidity of the blocker cars. And just a little bonk. Nothing. Alrighty, once again, we have audio playing again. Things have been sorted out. We had some pit stops under that caution, and now we have Madcap and Kevin 11 as your race leaders coming to the screen. Thirds, Ash, Chris Cox, everyone that didn't pit back on lap flag up here once again, and our audio is way too loud. Solid run down into turns 1 and 2 for Madcap, leading the way. Not the playoff driver I think we had to win this race, but he certainly is up there putting on a pretty solid show here this evening, as our timing and scoring is having a little bit of trouble here. Caution flag out once again, and it looks like once again we have a blocker car doing us the favor of crashing itself out. So I'll give a moment here to get everything squared away, and then we'll see if we can't take a look back here, see what caused this blocker car to spin. Being 3 wide with some of the Ottercar drivers is generally a good cause for concern. 3 wide with Sarah Something and August. There's the 88 of Ashley as well, and nope. It is still a self-spin regardless. So fair enough. Give it up for none other than caution flag number 7 as we see some more takers down on pit lane. Sarkin, August, Jeremy Albertson all coming down for a stop. But it's still going to be Madcap and Med leading the field to green here, followed by Pav and Kevin 11, Dwayne, Day, and Ash, your front runners. So still 2 playoff drivers, actually 3 playoff drivers inside of your first 3 rows here. The thirds, I think it's going to be hard for thirds to come back from where she is unless the rest of the field still needs to pit and do a 2-stop strategy. I think these late pitters might have shot themselves in the foot here. Of course, it is all just a big what if. We're gonna have to see how exactly things end up playing out. But I think they've put themselves in a difficult situation here. I say that, that's exactly what I said about thirds back at, I believe, back at Olden Park, or no, it was back at Road America, where thirds took home a very unexpected win, entirely on pit strategy. And that one was a bit of a flip-flop. We thought she got it, then we thought she didn't, then we thought she got it again, then we thought she didn't again, and then she still ended up getting it. So who knows? Apparently I just shouldn't make comments about pit strategies at all. Lights are out on the pace car, though. We're going to be going green flag racing this time around. Madcap, Med, Pav, Kevin 11, Dwayne Day, and Ash. Your first 3 rows of cars. Going to be 85 laps in the books as we come to the green. 30 laps left to go here in the NASA 115. Green flag up in the air once again here at Langley. A really solid run for our front runners, as again, all chaos back further behind in the rest of the field. Pretty much if you're not starting at the lead of the race, you're going to be in a very big spot of bother. Even starting on the front of the outside, really not any good for you. As once again, timing scoring breaking out a little bit here. As we nearly think about taking it 3 wide and still having a little bit of trouble with the timing and scoring here. But it's all drama around the speedway. Of course it is. Why would it not be? As we have a blocker car around and caution flag is not out. There we go. Now it is. As the blocker car self-spin has a little bit of a more dramatic impact this time around. And it looks like we're going to be seeing most of the field taking the tow down to pit lane. One might describe this as a small case of ARCA brakes, even though the ARCA car is not the car being used here. It looks like this should be, nope, not far enough back. Hold on, we gotta go even further back into the records here to get a better idea of what just went down. It looks like it might be this one. Nope. Is it you? Yes, it's you that causes all of the problems. It looks like Dwayne Day, MF Beatus, Zoe, Ash, Lake all involved. I believe Pav involved in there as well. Let's take a look back here. Right on board with one of the only survivors of this incident. Looks like Sark might have actually had the semblance of an idea to avoid the big drama going on up there. Of course, he does also have a lot of room to play with to actually react to what all is going on, so we got to give that to him. He does have a little bit more room to see what the deal is. Expertly dodges out of the way, but only just barely. We're very proud of Sarkin's driving abilities there. Only, you know, about 8 cars that decided to pile in, but he didn't. He is a free, independent thinker. And now we find ourselves in a difficult situation. We are within 25 to go, and most of the field is not on the lead lap anymore after that incident. We have Madcap leading the field, Med and Pav second and third, Kevin 11 back in fourth. Fifth is thirds. She has made her way back into the top 5. Ash up here as well. Chris Cox up inside the top 10 as well. So we do still have 4 playoff drivers inside of the top 10. Of course, Rally and Ame Sakamori both wrecked out. They're done for. Dwayne Day down on pit lane. Same with the 030 of Ash. So we're going to try this again. Green flag once again in the air here at Langley. As only 5 rows of cars duke it out on the lead lap, though we do have drivers coming out of pit lane. But it looks like so far so good. Nothing too dramatic going on here with 21 laps left to go here at this speedway. Madcap leads the field side by side for Pav, and Med third, stuck on the outside line. That 3 machine not where she wants to be if she wants to potentially walk away with the win here at this event. 20 to go here at Langley. 20 more times about this 4/10 of a mile, or 4.665, somewhere around 6/10 of a kilometer here at this speedway. Unless there's another caution, these 20 laps are going to be going by very, very quickly. Madcap has pulled away up to about a second lead now over the rest of the field. Pav leads the way with Med just behind, a lap car right up in front of them as we have more cars coming out pit lane. Big checkup. It looks like the 44 of limited time might have had trouble coming out of the pit lane. Caution flag out on the speedway. And it looks like it was for a blocker car again, baby. Let's go, blocker car. Woo. Was this for anything worthwhile? No, of course it wasn't. That would be too silly. Would you believe it? They can't even make left turns correctly. So we're going to be stacking the field back up. We're going to be making a little bit extra dramatic for the final couple of laps of this event. We have had enough yellows now that I think generally people should be okay on fuel at least, so I don't think there should be anything too catastrophic in regards to late race pit stops. I could be wrong on that. We could see all of these lead cars come down to pit lane, but I don't think we will. But still on the lead lap here, Madcap Pav, Med, Bloody Wolf Ash, Chris Cox thirds, drop table roster, Kevin 11, and Deeg. So only 10 cars still on the lead lap. Make that 11 as Sarkin in the 901 is going to be giving the lucky dog and get put back on the lead lap. So make that 11 cars still on the lead lap. We could see Sarkin maybe take home a surprise win. Who knows? For what it's worth, the closest he came to winning, I do believe that he led laps back at the Oran Park Raceway for the sorry, not Mount Panorama race. Unfortunately, that was the only event over in Australia, so he doesn't really have any home field advantage to work with anymore. But who knows? He is on the lead lap now. That is half the battle. Should be putting the lights out on the pace car this time around. So we should be restarting with 13 to go. If I am not mistaken on that, that of course is all provided that the lights actually go out. And yes, they do. So we will be 12 to go when we take the green flag. Might as well just be a 10-lap shootout. The other 2 laps, they don't matter. It's fine. No big deal. It's going to be Madcap up plus 10, Pav up plus 19 for your front row. And Pav is a driver that I think it'd be very interesting to keep our eyes on here, because Pav is a driver that we saw just straight up wreck out the race leader back at New Hampshire to attempt to get into the playoffs. It didn't work, but that bunny has established that he is willing to be out for blood. Green flag back up in the air here at Langley. We're going to do 12 more laps before we crown a winner here this evening. Madcap again pulling away to an early lead. It's just so hard to contest with that inside line as we have a blocker car around again. We might see another caution flag fly. Yes, we will. Immediately on the restart. as drivers seem to be having a little bit of trouble figuring out how to get around said blocker. I guess it is doing its job. It is blocking cars, just not quite correctly. Let's take a look down here and see what all of the drama was about, because this was literally turn one. And it looks like there was contact with one of the other blocker cars, and that's what's created the drama. So now we really are going to be going into a bit of a dramatic shootout to the finish. And with how good we've seen Madcap on these restarts, I'd be a little bit nervous if I was the rest of the field still on the lead lap. And for the second time, we have our audio drivers crash just about as hard as the blocker cars do. Gotta love a little bit of technology here, but it's working again. That's half the battle. Now we just gotta get through these final couple of laps. Gonna be, looks like a 5-lap shootout when we take the green here. It all comes down to this. And of course, something scary to think about as well is that there is no overtime here in these AI races. So if another caution flag flies, that's just going to be the end of the race. So it really is imperative to all these drivers up inside the top 5 that they get a really good start, because it may be the last opportunity they get to make an overtake. We're going to try this again though. 5 laps to crown a winner here at Langley. Green flag up in the air for the final time here tonight. Madcap again, a solid run going down into 1 and 2. So far, so good around the field. Ash pushes way up into second, pushing Med out of the way. Third's down there as well. Might see a 1-2-3 finish for Ottercar playoffs drivers here today. Med falling all the way back down to 4th now as Booty Wolf shoves his way in for 5th. And caution flag is out on the speedway. I don't know what happened, but Madcap is officially going to be your race winner here at Langley, as these final 3 laps will all be under caution. We'll have to give it a minute though, because the race is technically still being live scored right now until these 3 laps are completed under caution. So if someone runs out of fuel or some other dramatics occur, we could see a change in the finishing order. So we're going to let these 3 laps play out just to confirm the running order before we start doing any sorts of celebrations or anything like that here. Because who knows? It's entirely possible that something goes catastrophically wrong for some of these drivers here. But as it stands right now, Madcap should be scored as our race leader, with Ash back in 2nd and 3rd, basically winning the race as she finishes in the 3rd position. And the white flag is up here at Langley. Most intense final lap of the Ottercar AI Racing Series so far here this season. Never before have we seen a more intense battle on the final lap. All Madcap has to do is make it through these final two corners. Checkered flag is up in the air, and now Madcap officially is our race winner here at Langley. And as such, since he is a playoff driver, Madcap is locked into the Championship 4. He will have a spot, no matter what, to run for the championship at Sebring. The rest of the field, well, they're just going to have to qualify their way in next week at Charlotte. That said, before we take a look down at our race results for the evening, let's take a look back, see what brought out this caution on that final restart. And it looked like it was for one of the blocker cars, so we're just going to have to figure out which blocker car caused the issue. I believe that it was this one. I don't know that for certain, but I believe that this one is the one that brought out the caution. Which, to be fair, I believe this one has brought out just about every blocker car related caution here this evening. And no, it is not. It is the other blue blocker car. So it's this one. Which means we need to go back a little bit further. And was there actually contact there? Nope, it was just a self spin. Kinda on the ideal racing line. It tries and fails to get turned around. And then there's a decent chunk of the field just coming piling in, because why not? I don't think any of these cars were actually on the lead lap, so it's not that big of a deal. As Dwayne Day gets a bit impatient back out there, but that is going to be the caution flag that ends our race under caution. Let's take a look down at our race results now as they run. Madcap takes home the win for the Blazer Drunk Drivers, his first win of the season, and he now is locked in to the Championship 4. Finishing back in second, that's going to be another one of the playoff drivers. That is going to be the 11 of Ash, getting a nice little boost of points to carry with him into next week's event and potentially qualify in to the round of 4. Third's back in third. That's basically a race win for her. She wanted to finish in third. She is now finished in third, along with taking home a race win earlier in the season. Back and forth going to be the 1 of Med, with Bluety Wolf in the 93 rounding out your top 5. Back in 6 going to be the 12 of Pav, followed by the 69 of Chris Cox, another one of these playoff drivers, and the only remaining playoff driver to finish inside the top 10, followed by the 7 of Kevin 11, the 800 of Deeg back in 9th, with Sarkin in the 901, rounding out the top 10 and being the last driver on the lead lap. Back in 11th going to be MF Beatus in the 818, followed by Drop Table Roster in the 369. Lake going to be bringing it home back in 13th, followed by Queen and Matrine back in 14th, and Valnar back rounding out the 15th position. 16th going to be going back to Zoe, followed by, oh, you know, back in 17th, Jeremy Albertson in 18th in that 985 machine. Limited time, 19th and 20th going to be going back to August. 21st going to the 030 of Ash, followed by the 777 of Sarah Something. Dwayne Day back in 23rd. Ashley in 24th. Rally in 25th. With Ame Sakuramori bringing it home the tail end of the field in 26th, which is a little crazy to see, considering Ame just had a right front tire damage incident, whereas Rally was jettisoned out of the speedway, and somehow Rally got a better finishing position than Ame Sakuramori. But either way, it has been an absolutely catastrophic day for the hybrid development team, both in their team championship efforts and in their playoff driver efforts. And again, those are the only 2 drivers for hybrid development team, and hybrid development team is the only team that got all of their drivers into the playoffs, and they're now walking it home in the final 2 positions here in tonight's event. Next week, though, heading to the Charlotte Motor Speedway road course for the Kills You Corner, presented by Speedway Motorsports 75. I believe 75 is the number for it. I don't quite remember. But we're heading to the Charlotte Motor Speedway road course, specifically the 2018 layout that was used once and never used again because they realized, wow, the Kills You Corner is really stupid and we should have tested it before we let drivers drive on it. That said, that's all we've got here from Langley. Just 2 races left now before we crown an Ottercar AI Racing Series champion and then start figuring out what the deal is going to be for Ottercar season number 3. That said, thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. Have a good afternoon, race fans.